Welcome back to Veronica Live, and we are here with our favorite Millennial Minister of Truth. Joining me on the Veronica Live COVID edition. I'm barely making it, Drew, but the steroids are getting me through for your interview. Welcome back, my friend.
Hey, well, you're powering through. I'm proud of you, honestly, and I can relate because I've had it a couple of times, and I know what you're going through now because you have the worst of it, and It's brutal. And the fact that you're here right now, unbelievable.
Yeah, no, I literally almost canceled, but I was like, sometimes, I told John this morning, we're fighting for America. And if we don't fight through it, who's going to? But breaking news on my phone, I guess Trump had originally offered JFK Jr., the VP, or JFK Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the VP slot. This is how delirious I am on Dayquil. So is this a delirious offer that he's like, well, maybe, to have a Dem on the ticket? Breaking news?
Oh, wow. I hadn't seen that. So wait, so the deal is that he has supposedly behind closed doors offered that to RFK Jr.?
Yes, just out right now. My phone.
I'm not sure. I actually don't like it. I understand why some people do think it's a good idea. I think it's a horrendous idea just because of, frankly, Trump's age and the fact that the deep state, who knows what they could do to him. And if you're left with RFK Jr., the problem is, people love RFK Jr. for his position on vaccines and COVID.
Right.
That's about the only position where he's got alliances with the right. Everything else, he's a far left Democrat on everything.
Right.
And yeah, he's come out lately and said stuff about the border, but everybody should be on that page about the border. But when it comes to the economy, he's a socialist. These programs, he's bad for the country. I don't care if he's nice. I don't care what Jimmy Carter was nice, and look what happened. So I don't like it at all, actually.
John, I'm a pro-lifer. There's no way he could be on the ticket at all.
I don't think the MAGA people would take him, and the fact that you point out he's a liberal, at the end of the day, and he does more damage to the Democrats because he's going to suck their votes, not MAGA votes. So he really adds nothing to the ticket.
No, he doesn't. I'm not looking. Look, if we can't get some of these disillusioned Democrats or, kind of Reagan Democrats to come over just because of reality, what's happened with the Democrat Party and using Trump as a reason, then we don't deserve to win. I'm sorry. If we have to start running Democrats to win elections, kiss this country goodbye.
Yeah, the one I like so far that I've heard is Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I'm absolute fan of hers and her dad. We know they just live right down the road here, about 40 miles away from us. But really great, and they would bring the evangelical vote like you wouldn't believe, So I really hope he goes with her.
Yeah, look, let's take care of the conservative voters who've been supporting you the whole time. Let's not try and go and pander to Democrats now, huh? Let's not betray us, please.
Well, on that note, we've got two hot stories to talk to you about. And the first one, of course, is that lovely woman being awarded $83 million for Sticks and Stones Will Break My Bones, Drew.
So I'm not going to be nice now. E. Jean Carroll is the self-described slut who won't shut up. She is a slut, and she's the most raped woman in America. And I don't say that lightly. I know people who've been through trauma.
Ouch.
My point is she hasn't, or maybe she has. But if you go back to her history, she's basically accused every man who's ever made eye contact with her of raping her.
Right.
And so this is why I'm taking this approach. I'm not being, believe me, there are people in my life, and I understand, and I actually despise these people. Trump is not somebody who raped her. Also look at her, by the way, even when she was young. But secondarily, the most important thing to remember is this is all a con job. This is how sick the Democrat Party is. I knew this. I wrote about it in my book, actually. I get into detail about this. Not what happened now, but the original case. So, you have to remember that E. Jean Carroll accused him of raping her in a Bergdorf Goodman changing room, dressing room, if you will, I got almost 30 years ago. And she couldn't even remember the actual date. She didn't know what year it was even. It was maybe in this year, maybe in that year. And she didn't talk about this issue until she came out with a book talking about all of her rapes. And it was on the coattails of the Me Too movement. So obviously you're already suspicious. Wow, you didn't have an issue with bringing this up ever. And now you're bringing it up to sell your book and get interviews. And of course, she went on Anderson Cooper famously and said that her rape was sexy. And that's why, it was an insult to real rapes because her rape that Trump committed was sexy. That's what she said. This is a lunatic. And so you have to remember, obviously, if something happened 30 years ago, the statute of limitations rightfully prevents that from being brought against you in a court of law, an event that happened that long ago. So what New York did, the state of New York, Kathy Hochul, she signed a law that was the Adult Survivors Act, I believe is the name of it. And this gave a 1-year window for anybody who had ever been raped in their entire life, whether it was 100 years ago or 50 years ago, they could go ahead and come forward and sue the person. And so that's what opened the window. And Reid Hoffman, who's a far left donor, he's funding the Nikki Haley campaign as well. He's one of the co-founders of LinkedIn. He funded her entire operation. He funded her lawsuits. And amazingly, E. Jean Carroll claimed that she didn't know about it when it was revealed. I didn't know. You didn't know who was paying all these millions of dollars in lawyer fees for you for all these years. So obviously she took advantage of, or frankly, I believe it's probably more truthful that this entire Adult Survivors Act was concocted to allow this hit job on Trump. And E. Jean Carroll is not mentally well in the head, emotionally, spiritually, in any way whatsoever. So she was the perfect candidate to go ahead and go on TV and call rape sexy and follow through with this. And here's what's most important for everyone to remember. This did go to court, and it was a civil trial. And you have to remember that the preponderance standard, the proof, it's not 100%. It's not beyond a benefit of the doubt. It's 51%. So she accused Trump of raping her. And even the far left jury that found him guilty did not find him guilty of rape. They found him guilty of battery. So what they did basically, she said, he raped me. And the jury said, well, there's no evidence for this. We don't believe it. So therefore, they decided, well, we'll just downgrade it. Maybe he battered you. We'll go with that, battery. We can't go with rape because, there's no evidence, but there's evidence for battery. And so who is defamed who here? You went to a jury accusing him of raping you, and the jury didn't even believe your claim. And now you're going after Trump and saying he defamed you when you've been in the news accusing him of rape, which he didn't actually ever commit? Give me a freaking break. So the law is dead. New York has been taken back over by the Redcoats, just like it was during the American Revolution, and it is not a safe haven for anybody who's an American.
I was amazed at the judge, as far as like telling Trump what he could and couldn't say, and telling his lawyer what they could say in closing arguments. I mean, it's like, wait a minute. He's entitled to defend himself, and he wants to make alternative theories. That's his business. The judge can't sit here and say, well, you're not allowed to defend yourself, basically.
Well, it's a banana republic. And then I was telling John earlier, Drew, now that I fly up to like New York quarterly, if you're in that store that they supposedly were raped in, it's a high-end store, so you would never be left alone in the dressing room because they're constantly waiting on you. So none of this is true. None of this.
Exactly. What, you're just in there? You don't make a peep. You got a Bergdorf Goodman full of people and everything else, and you're just silent. What you got, a gun?
No. Okay. Well, look, that was a crazy story from yesterday.
Yeah, Trump's arrangement syndrome is real.
It's out of control, but it continues. And you are a Texas guy, and Texas they're defending their sovereignty with all of their razor wire, and then the Supreme Court comes out to include John Roberts and Amy, whatever her name is, Amon Dayquil, and the Supreme Court says they can take away that razor wire and have this free-for-all border. And Texas is saying no, and every Republican governor, I think every single one, has said, we stand with Texas. So what's going on in America now that Texas needs to break away to defend their own state?
Yeah, well, firstly, and again, I don't throw this out flippantly, the Biden administration, those responsible for this illegal invasion, are guilty of treason. That's very real. That's the crime. And we know what the consequences for that are. But anyway, look, in relation to the border situation, I want to point something else out, and people might have to stick with me for a minute to believe me, but this is really actually kind of a civil rights movement that is what's really happening at the border. If you remember, obviously, prior to 1964 and kind of the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, beginning in kind of the 1954, mid-1950s there, you had the civil rights movement that developed, and you had the sit-ins, and Martin Luther King Jr., of course, became really the face of that movement that we still remember to this day. And that, of course, was about something that was unconstitutional that was happening in this country. Southern Democrats were discriminating against Black Americans. Despite the fact that we had a civil war, despite the fact that amendments were written to right that wrong, you still had people in this country who were depriving Blacks of their rights. And it was not lawful, but they got away with it. They had power in Washington, D.C., they had power in these states. And so anyway, after, really a history of abuse, Blacks experiencing abuse by the hands of Democrats, they finally developed the civil rights movement. And that's what it culminated in, of course, that big situation that took place for about a decade. Well, if you look at what's happening at the border and in this country today, we also have a civil rights movement. And it's not just about Blacks. It's not just about Republicans. It's actually about every single American. That is, we have a tyrannical government that is abusing its power. It has taken power that is not even constitutionally given to it. Remember, the Constitution limits what the government can do, not what the American citizen can do. So we have an out-of-control, all-powerful central government, a federal government that does not abide by the law, and they are unaccountable. And so that is showing its face now at the border, where the Biden administration, of course, is not doing its duty. There's been no accountability for this. And, of course, it's treason. And so they are not defending the American people. They're not defending our national sovereignty and our border. And you finally have Governor Abbott, who really deserves credit, is bravely stepping up, and he is doing what the federal government refuses to do. And not only that, this federal government is sabotaging his own efforts to do what the federal government is supposed to do. And so a lot of Americans are viewing this like a civil rights movement. All of the abuse by the FBI, of what they've done to Trump, of what they've done to the J6 protesters, all of these violations, all of these crimes that the government has committed. Well, now people feel like maybe the state of Texas stands a chance at standing up to the federal government, whereas the individual citizen stands no chance at all. And so that's how I view what's happening at the southern border. It's not just about the border, although that's very, very important.
Correlation.
It's about a broad, and I hope that Governor Abbott will stand strong. He should. He's got 25 Republican governors now behind him, and the Border Patrol union came out, at least those representing the individuals in Texas, working in Texas, and said we are going to respect Governor Abbott's rulings, commands, whatever else, that he gives the National Guardsmen, and we're not going to turn this into some kind of war. So they don't have Biden's back.
It's across the board, you see all the garbage going on about the border, Ukraine, Israel aid bill and everything. And I'm laughing when I'm watching this sausage making, it's like, I guess Biden came out and said his minimum number of acceptable illegals is 110,000 a month. That's the minimum he'll allow, and I'm sitting there saying to these, particularly Langford, Senator Langford, what is it in your mind that you think you can pass in a law that's going to stop what's going on, that there's not already a law in place? It's just not being enforced. They have no intention of enforcing anything that gets passed. And so why pass anything? You've got plenty of laws. What's going on with these idiots?
Brilliant point. They need to listen to you carefully there, because that's the whole problem. It's that the problem with this administration is they are not enforcing the laws that are on the books. That's why I'm having the treason conversation. They are supposed to uphold the Constitution. They're supposed to uphold the laws of the land, and they're intentionally not doing so. And so you're right. What law? It's kind of like the gun thing too. It's like, oh, gee, let's pass a law to prevent murder. We have one. It's illegal to commit murder. I mean, what do you want to do? Take people's guns? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, this is all just a joke. There's other schemes going on. And now they're trying to blame Republicans. And if Republicans, frankly, aren't smart, or even just, not stupid, they will get destroyed on an issue that they should be winning on. And we have, Mitt Romney and some other conniving anti-Trump, anti-American rhinos in there that are already working with the Democrats to do this. This is why it's so important. And I wish that these Republicans, I hope somebody's listening now, because if they don't start impeaching Mayorkas, if they don't start pushing their own legislation forward to deal with this in some serious way, to show the American people they're serious. And impeachment is the most important thing they can do because it's the clearest sign that they're actually serious people about the border. Because if they don't do that, the Democrats are going to blame Republicans. They're going to say it's not true, but there's a lot of stupid people out there, and they own a lot of the media still. They're going to say that, they're already saying it. Trump and the Republicans don't want to pass anything to solve this, so it's their fault. But the bill that the Biden administration and rhinos, this bipartisan legislation that are trying to pass in the Senate too, it's like the Inflation Reduction Act. It's on its face. It's a lie. It says it's going to address inflation. It has nothing to do with inflation. This border bill they're talking about funds Ukraine and actually gives money not to do anything to secure the border. It gives money to help process them faster, because the problem for the Biden administration is not the illegal invasion. It's that it can't happen faster. We can't get more illegals across the border because we're limited by personnel.
Yeah.
Well, I was laughing. It's like, we need more border agents to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. That's the problem.
So Drew, were you shocked by Justice Amy Coney Barrett not supporting Texas?
Not when I look back at her history and her record. Actually, there were a lot of smart people. I wasn't one of them because I wasn't really doing this back then. But they kind of looked at things she'd written in the past, kind of her record, if you will. And they said, I'm a little bit worried about her being a pick. Now, look, she's Catholic, and so, right. Who knows? If the Pope changes his position, like the demon that he is, maybe she'll go along with it, just like Democrat voters who are like, no, we want abortion to be safe, legal, and rare. And then, Hillary Clinton says, no, let's have infanticide. And all the Democrats scream, yay, infanticide. Well, it's the same thing if you follow this Pope. But anyway, so she was good on the abortion issue on that. That was obviously unconstitutional anyway, Roe v. Wade. If you have a brain, even leftist scholars were saying, I can't believe we got away with this. But anyway, I don't know. I'd have to look into it more, but there are other people who weren't surprised by it. But she seems to be like another John Roberts. And I don't know what the explanation is behind this. I don't know how at this time in history you can support this administration and their lawlessness, and that's basically what she did. She sided with the tyrants, and people. It's really that simple. We're in a war between it's tyranny versus freedom. That's really what it's about right now.
Well, it's sad when Uncle Festerman, comes out and says we're being invaded, 300,000 migrants, and it's like, wait a minute, isn't he a Democrat that's got a brain problem? Oh, wait a minute. He makes sense. Maybe that's what it takes to have a brain problem.
So the other big hot story was Nikki Haley in New Hampshire, and she's still not going away, Drew. And then DeSantis dropped out, and I think you said it before. Why aren't we just running with Trump as our guy? And I really can't take any more Nikki Haley. So how can you save us from her?
Well, honestly, what we need to start doing on our side is pretending. Not giving her any even media attention. Just ignore her. Let her sit there like a crazy loon that's running this shadow campaign that's never going to get anywhere. Just let her humiliate herself. Treat her like this ugly stepchild. This is how we need to treat her. It's a joke. We don't want her. Nobody wants her. The only reason she's in there is because Reid Hoffman, the same person that funded E. Jean Carroll's lawsuit against Trump, is funding her campaign. So she can stay in as long as there's money, and the Democrats are backing her because she's the agent of chaos. She's the one to prevent us from finally kind of just truly rallying around our candidate, naming him, the nominee, and destroying the Democrats. As long as she's in there, it kind of distracts, it divides us to some extent, and it's a waste of time. Everyone needs to be talking like it's Trump, making that defense. Kind of like, remember when the Democrats stole the 2020 election? They came out immediately while all the fraud was evident. We were trying to investigate it, and they're like, they wanted to remind us, that President-elect Joe Biden, it's all over. Bush came out, it's all over. 6 hours after, they counted the final bust-in bin of ballots, they pulled out from some crevice below the floor in one of the counting places, and they're all like, it's over, Joe Biden's the victory. I mean, that's what we need to be doing actually with Trump, is like, it's over.
Okay,
So
now
true.
here's the big story, Drew. You're a California guy, okay?
John's got
And
a
one
good
of my
one.
favorite places, In and Out, is closing their Compton store or Oakland store. What's going on out there that they're having to close an In and Out? And are they coming to Florida anytime soon?
Hey, well, actually, I have some inside information about this closing in Oakland. One of my best friends out here is a firefighter in Oakland. And that location he's been on before for calls because there's gunshots and gang violence all around there all the time. And so it's an unbelievably unsafe location now. All kinds of violence happening in that particular place. And that's where this In-N-Out happens to be. And so, it's pretty shocking. They're actually shutting down the In-N-Out because it's not safe for the employees. I imagine they don't want to go to work anymore. And it's just insane that it's gotten to this point. But that's what's in store for the rest of the country, of course. Everywhere you are, everywhere you live, if you continue to support the Democrat Party, those policies by design lead to that kind of chaos. And the only person who benefits from things like that are the tyrants who can use that as a excuse and reason to seize more power. They'll take your guns away and leave you defenseless in there. And what are you going to do? You're going to have to beg the Democrats to please protect you.
Well, the funniest line in that story, because John sent it to me for our afterburner stack, was roughly 1 out of every 30 Oakland residents has had their car stolen this year. That's insanity. Who's in charge over in Cali?
Yeah. Well, he's out there spreading his message about what a great governor he is and how great Texas, how great, it's just amazing, these people, these complete dip, whats. They just no self-awareness. They don't care. You run the worst state arguably in the country. You've run it into the ground worse than anyone even before you. And you're out there talking about how great you are when meanwhile, all the evidence is people are getting the hell out of here.
Yeah.
Me.
Well, I thought the other one was funny. One was whether it was an assemblyman that came up with this idea that let's make a law that says cars can't go more than 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, And I'm like, only in California would somebody come up with that stupid idea.
It's unreal. This is the incubator for bad ideas.
Well, you are the Millennial Minister of Truth, but you're also a true patriot. And you were, I wanted to ask you about that interview you had across the pond with the Brits, and they had such a Trump hater over there, and you took him on. So you were slaying that British dragon.
Oh, yeah, I cleaned his clock easily. He was a stupid person because he's a communist. So it's not that hard to deal with him. The only problem is usually they get on these programs and they spout their propaganda, and there's nobody to stand up to them. They just get away with it. It's like watching what's the show? He and his wife do the weekend show. Joe Scarborough. He gets on there and spouts the same propaganda. Yeah, and there's nobody to push back. That's what this guy did. So I cleaned his clock. It was humiliating for him. It looked like he was going to cry on live television. I hope I get to do it again because I want to make him cry.
Well, now give me a tip, Drew, because I always have trouble trying to get down to their level of stupid to even address.
Oh yeah.
Argument.
Yeah. Well, I think I don't know if it will work for everybody. I mean, kind of where I'm at, I'm just so fed up with him that they don't stand a chance because I'm a very intense person sometimes, and they can't deal with my intensity. So they can say whatever they want, and they can't overcome the energy that I have. They just don't want to deal with me because I'm scary. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
And I don't know if you. This is meant as a compliment, by the way, but you kind of remind me of Ben Shapiro in your approach. And he's very sharp with the people that come at him as stupid, and then just takes them apart.
Well, yeah, exactly. And look, I reserve that for people who are already kind of coming from my jugular. The only thing that people like that understand is pain. So I'll give it back to them, and that's what deals with it. But with other Americans, I'm not that way. If somebody wants to talk about politics with me, I don't have even the tone and tenor in my voice that I have now that's kind of, pointed. I can be I can be relaxed and I can be open-minded and kind, but it depends if I'm dealing with a kind person who's just genuinely misinformed, or if it's somebody who knows exactly what they're doing and they're trying to destroy the country. If somebody's coming at me and their musket's not loaded and they're confused, I'm not going to react by, firing at them. Right. But if they're coming at me with a bayonet, I'm going to put my bayonet in front of me.
But we had that conversation with Rachel Ernenfeld this morning, about the Soros Agenda book author, and that was one thing we really couldn't ever wrap up was what is his objective? I mean, obviously he's trying to destroy the country, but what's the end game? Is it just pure anarchy? Is there something that he wants that he has a vision of, or is it just be anarchist and destroy everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's confusing with people like that. I don't know, because how much of the government, is Soros really running, with his money and his influence, So what is in it for him? And with somebody like Hitler, what his kind of objective was, and that's more understandable. I mean, I'm not saying anything he did was right, but I'm saying you can understand what his objective was. His objective was, even though he didn't have blonde hair, he wanted this master race. And he wanted to rule the world with the Aryan people. He hated Jews. One of them, obviously did successfully terminate and murder and slaughter so many of them. But you understand what he was after, But he kind of had this weird, he thought Germany should be, this magnificent leader of the world. What's weird about kind of these globalists and the people in America that are in the Democrat Party is like, they hate America. So, I mean, usually these tyrants they're like nationalists, right? So like Napoleon, he was a proud Frenchman. These people are proud of their nations and they want their nations to be successful and great. And in our case, the Democrats hate America and they want to destroy it. So I don't really know what's really in it for them. I don't know what the end goal for Soros is. If you were to destroy America and rebuild it, I mean, does he have a name in mind? The Soros state. I mean, what is he after?
Sorry-ka.
He doesn't like the commies. The oligarchs in Russia, are wrong. I mean, it's like okay, you've got all these different forms of government, but and you claim there's something better out there, but it's this open government or open world. It sounds chaos, or maybe it's just reserved for the Davos crowd to be the ones that go out there and decide everything for everybody.
I think so.
Well, what's weird? Yeah.
No, go ahead, Drew.
Well, they hate human beings. I was just going to say, if you read into a lot of these people at the World Economic Forum and that crowd that influences a lot of the kind of Democrat Party and even rhinos today too, the kind of globalist mentality. If you get into it with AI and everything else now, it's weird because they're anti-human. So they do talk about population control and things like that, and that's kind of I don't know. You've had people out there that supported population control, obviously by eradicating blacks or eradicating Jews. I mean, the Democrats used to put abortion clinics in black areas because they wanted blacks to kill themselves. Kind of self defeat themselves. So I don't know, but it's weird. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine being born and having such evil kind of percolate and then really take over your heart and soul that these are the thoughts you wake up with every day. Like, it's like I wake up and like, I'm excited. I get to come on and talk to y'all. Like my daughter this morning, so funny and so cute. And we had pancakes for breakfast. And, I think about productive things I can do. I want to work in the garage today and clean it up. I want to do things that build and improve. And that's most of us. And then you've got these other people that wake up every day in a cloud of darkness, true darkness, and they want to tear everything down. But not just for themselves; they want to inflict it on other people, and it's spiritual. I think at some point.
No, he doesn't have God. He's in the book. It says he's agnostic, which I feel that I felt that he was that way, anyways. But another thing I wanted to ask you about is that transgender swimmer Leah Thomas is like secretly fighting to try to get into the Olympics, and then we had that transgender golfer this week. When is enough? I can't compete against a man that's got boobs bolted on him that's 6'3", especially when I'm on Dayquil, Drew.
Yeah,
enough is enough.
I know. Look, I think this is getting to a point where it's going to come crashing down. The problem right now is most people feel like all of us do that are sane, that don't need, a brain implant, amputation, whatever. And this is, but the problem is, the committees, right? The people that run these organizations, the Olympics and so on and so forth, they are on board. Like the problem is all of these lunatics have basically, because they're activists and they have a goal and we're just kind of living our lives, they're actually seeking out to take over these organizations so that they can do this to us. So most people aren't on board with this, but the Olympic Committee or whatever, they have the final say, so they can say, yeah, we'll change it all. Everything has been infested, frankly, by these lunatics, from the Medical Association, the American Medical Association. You name it. Is there an organization left has no credibility anymore, but is there an organization left that hasn't been taken over by these radical leftists? Everywhere you look, they've taken over. And so we have this conflict because obviously they're making decisions and supporting things to change our society in ways that we don't agree with, but it's happening anyway.
Yeah.
So do you think DEI is reached its zenith and is starting to descend, or is it just going into hiding?
Starting with United Airlines.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it hasn't come to an end for those same reasons. Our heads rolling over it. Have people been fired? Apart from the one victory at Harvard with the
Dr. Gay,
quota hire, Dr. Gay, the plagiarist. But is Harvard really going to change? No doubt Harvard's reputation is just in ruins. It's in tatters. It does not have the credibility that it used to have. Even I graduated from high school in 2005, and I went to kind of one of these elitist all male prep schools. So we were a bunch of smart guys. We got into the best schools. I happened to go to Pepperdine, which was a great school. But I had friends who they went to Harvard, they went to Yale, they went to Princeton, they went to all these things. And I remember at the time I had a friend, John. He got into Harvard. I thought, man, that is the coolest thing ever. This guy's going to Harvard. This is like the smartest guy I know. And of course, now I look at it, and if somebody told me they were going to Harvard, I'd say, oh my gosh, are you pro Hamas? Are you a terrorist?
That's so true. Well, what are we missing, Drew? The world doesn't stop. We've got George Soros putting millions everywhere. I'm a COVID queen. John and I are slaying dragons today, and we can't slay enough of them. 2024, your book, America's Last Stand's amazing, and it counts more than ever this year, our election cycle.
It's funny what happened. Because, I wrote so America's Last Stands, the premise is it's going to be a rematch between Trump and Biden or some other Democrat they replace him with. And so my book makes a definitive argument to reelect Trump in 2024, but it came out in last October. And so it's becoming more relevant now because I was kind of ahead of the curve, if you will. Yeah. And it came out at a time when people didn't. It's funny. I feel kind of good. Obviously the publisher's happy too. Can you imagine if I wrote a book and it was like, it's going to be DeSantis versus, I wouldn't have a book anymore. It'd be a biggest waste of money
DeSantis.
Ever. Yeah. No, not for 2024 anyway. But
exactly.
it's wild. I just think, we have these conversations and they get a little intense and serious sometimes. That's because I love the country. But I am optimistic. I never want to be mistaken for somebody who's given up on the country. I talk like this with this kind of energy because I wake up with a zeal. I'm weird because in the face of all this stuff, I get excited because I'm kind of a fighter. So I was kind of born for this kind of environment because I actually like it. Some people hate confrontation. I love confrontation. I look for confrontation, which is obviously not good sometimes. Like driving down the road, you don't want to look for confrontation, But
not in California.
But I'm wired this way. Yeah, not in California. I'm wired this way.
Well, your book, again, it's on Amazon.com. It's doing great, America's Last Stand. And we always got to have you on because you're fighting the fight over in California on the West Coast. And we got you covered in the Panhandle in Freedom, Florida.
Yep. You can go enjoy another cup of coffee and contribute to climate change.
And some Napa wine. Well,
That's
have
right.
a blessed day, Drew. And thanks for coming back on Veronica Live. You're one of our family members.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Y'all have a good rest of your day.
All right, thanks. We'll be right back on Veronica.